I'm getting a call. Hello? It's the government. They want me to have a child? Okay, just kidding. That wasn't them. But they are trying to get more people to have kids.
As birth rates start to fall around the developed world, governments are taking some pretty drastic actions to try to get people to start a family. So Russia is offering $7,000 to families with more than 2 kids. And Hungary introduced a loan of $30,000 to newlyweds, and the loan is forgiven if they have 3 children.
Yeah, Austria lengthened maternity leave to 2.5 years. Sweden now lets parents transfer parental leave to grandparents. And as of just recently, Spain will now pay single parents the same amount of parental leave as a double parent household.
Authoritarian countries are also cracking down to try to boost birth rates. Like Iran, for example, actually made birth control free in the 90s, but is now limiting access to contraception. And oh my God, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was seen sobbing on national TV, begging the National Conference of Mothers to stop declining birth rates.
저 생각하는 깨끗한 양심이고 혁명의 미래를 떠매고 나갈 새 세대들의 대오를 튼튼히 꾸리.
Well, even President Trump just signed an executive order to expand access to IVF. On the campaign trail, he promised insurance companies or the government would cover all IVF expenses, which are usually between $12,000 to $25,000. And he called himself...
I'm the father of IVF, so I want to hear this question.
Even though his supporters are claiming that this is promises made, promises kept.
Guys, it's happening. The president just signed an executive order to help insurance companies pay for IVF. Deserving couples, hardworking families, they wanted nothing more to be parents, but finances stood in their way.
So the order on its own is actually asking for policy recommendations to protect IVF access and reduce costs. And that's kind of it. Like, it doesn't change any existing policy. And that was kind of surprising for people because if you look at all of Trump's executive orders, they were all like drastic, in-depth, sweeping actions. And this one was kind of vague and doesn't have any action.
Well, he's really getting it from all sides because anti-abortion activists are upset because they're really against IVF. But then gay families, which often rely on IVF to have kids, are also upset because the order specifically emphasizes making it easier for loving mothers and fathers to have children.
And critics say that the order is like a PR move and is designed to target the US's declining birth rate. So the order says that the birth rate has been dropping 2% annually for the past decade. And right now, the rate is lower than what's needed to maintain the population size. And that sounds bad, but this is a pattern that we're seeing in progressive countries where people are choosing to not have children.
Yeah, conservatives seem fixed on birth rates right now. Like J.D. Vance has warned of the dangers of the childless left. We all remember childless cat ladies. And Elon Musk is like the poster boy for the pronatalist movement because he has 13 kids now. And he called low birth rates the biggest danger civilization faces.
And according to Politico, anxieties over these falling birth rates have meshed with fears of rising immigration, which is interesting because technically, if you think about it, opening up borders, letting more people come in, that could raise the population, but some leaders are very against it, like the Hungarian prime minister, who has said that migration for us is surrender.
Well, the most extreme pronatalists include white supremacists and eugenicists. A speaker at the Natalist Convention said that the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is probably the single most destructive set of laws in American history and should all be wiped forever. And the Civil Rights Act, of course, outlaws discrimination on the basis of race, religion, sex, and national origin.
Oh my God, so we obviously have to talk about Natal Con, which is the biggest pro-natalist convention in the world, and it'll actually be next month in Austin, Texas. And what they do at these events is bring together the brightest minds in the world to chart roadmaps on how to raise birth rates. And the organization hosts a dinner and a symposium, and it's basically 2 days of talking about collapsing fertility.
So I view this as fundamentally a conservation project. If the Bengal tiger suddenly and dramatically stopped breeding, we wouldn't say, wow, I'm so glad the tigers are prioritizing their mental health. And we certainly wouldn't say, good, there's too many Bengal tigers are ruining everything. Instead, we'd look at their environment and try to figure out what changed, what's disrupting their ability to fulfill this most basic imperative. If you're built to do anything at all, you're built to fall in love and have children and raise them. And there's no more punishing verdict. There's no situation in which a person is more psychologically vulnerable than when they take a chance on that. Bottom line, the infrastructure that gets ordinary people educated, employed, paired off, and raising kids has just broken down.
People who have attended say the mission is to build an army of like-minded children who will reject the changes brought by liberal democracy. And it was founded by a conservative Mormon who actually came up with the idea after watching Tucker Carlson's documentary on collapsing testosterone levels.
And Natal Con cites a lot of contributing factors to declining birth rates, like they say sperm counts are historically low, that public schools are indoctrinating children against the good Christian values, and of course that society has convinced women that they can have it all and that they end up, quote, unhappy, infertile, and alone.
So let's get into whether or not these concerns are valid. So the current birth rate in the US is 1.6. Keep in mind replacement rate is 2.1, so the population is shrinking. And having an older population can lead to some issues like lack of caregivers and children to take care of the elderly or increased healthcare demands due to a shortage of doctors and more resources needed.
And according to the World Health Organization, the number of people aged 65 or older will double from the year 2010 to 2050. So there will be nearly 1.5 billion elderly adults on the planet then, which is a lot. And even though at a global level there is no shortage of people, obviously there's more people than ever, drastically low birth rates can lead to problems in individual countries like labor shortages, which is like a really big problem, towns emptying out, even like less innovation.
And there are many reasons why birth rates are falling. More access to contraception and choice, cost of living and childcare is increasing, chemicals are causing infertility, and simply more couples just don't see kids in their life plan.
Which is why a lot of experts in the field say that declining birth rates is a sign of progress in societies. So for people in more affluent countries, having children gets to be this personal choice. Like there is that luxury to make sure you have the right partner and it's the right time and it's something that you really want.
No, it's definitely a sign of advancement for most countries. Like declining infant mortality rates mean you don't need to have as many kids, women being able to pursue career goals beyond raising children, and economies shifting from agricultural businesses, which often rely on offspring, to more like leisure and aspirations.
And it's hard for me to really know where I stand on the issue because it does seem like the world kind of flip-flops on whether we need more people. Like we kind of grew up learning about the dangers of overpopulation and like China's one-child policy. And even now we see countries like India that are dealing with so many people that there isn't the proper infrastructure to support them. And so there's a lack of services.
Well, opinions are very split. Like some people see women having more control over their careers as empowering, and others see it as toxic feminism. Same with heightened contraception and abortion access. Like some see it as liberating, others would literally say it's a sin. Even the rise of the tradwives trend is proof that some people idolize this old-fashioned type of lifestyle and other people like us want to live in cities.
But no matter what side of the debate you're on, birth rates are declining and governments are really prioritizing trying to reverse this trend. So let's take a look at Japan as a case study because their situation is one of the most extreme and what the government is doing over there is seen as one of the most experimental.
So for context, Japan has one of the lowest birth rates in the world at 1.2, and a recent study found that if the birth rate stays where it is now, the whole country will only have one child in 700 years. There's a chilling anecdote about a small village with less than 60 residents, most of them elderly, and they so missed the days when the village was filled with kids running around that they created mannequins depicting children riding bikes and swinging on swing sets, and they placed them around the town. So it's pretty bleak.
That's like really creepy and just sad. And apparently, I mean, Japan has been dealing with this issue since the 1980s. And that's kind of when the government started rolling out what was seen at the time as like crazy policies to increase births, like opening subsidized daycare, paying direct cash allowances for having a child, and so many more. But none of that really seemed to work. So the number of babies born in Japan last year fell to the lowest level since the government started collecting those statistics in 1899.
Well, Tokyo, the world's largest city, is really dire. Their birth rate is even less than 1. So they've gotten creative. Last year, Tokyo launched a government-run dating app that uses AI to match people. Users must be single, over 18, want to get married, and take a diagnostic test about the desired traits of a future partner.
And parts of the application process are pretty standard, like you send in your height and education, your job, and a photo. And then it gets kind of intense. So you have to send in an income certificate, have an interview with an app operator who deems whether you're serious or not, and sign a pledge promising that you're looking for marriage.
They are really not messing around. In addition to the app, Tokyo allows parents with children in grades 1 to 3 to trade off a little bit of their salary for the option to clock out early.
And starting this April, Tokyo is actually going to have a 4-day work week for government employees. And it's basically designed to encourage couples to like relax and take time off, rekindle their romance, and have sex.
Oh, wow. Nothing steamier than a government-sanctioned sex day. But a 4-day work week will also help once the kids come and you need to take care of them.
And experts say that Japan's declining birth rate can partially be blamed on their really intense work culture. They even have a term for death by overwork called karoshi. So maybe these like out of the box initiatives will be helpful because they're not just like blanket policies, here's some money. They're actually focused on targeting a specific cultural issue.
And that's why critics say President Trump's IVF order is more for optics because it doesn't actually address the root of why the population is shrinking, which is more and more people deciding they don't want kids.
The 2% of women that do use IVF, Trump's order falls flat because, again, it just asks for policy recommendations, which we'll actually see 90 days from when the order was passed.
So are birth rates cause for concern? Well, most experts say in the face of climate change, increasing risk of nuclear catastrophe, and risk of AI taking over our jobs, we have bigger things to worry about.
But all these moves by governments around the world spending more money on childcare and new couples and refashioning work culture does help improve the lives of families who already do have children.